with Sam Seder, where every day's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday, Tuesday, Casual Tuesday, Wednesday, Casual Hump Day, Thursday, Casual Thurs, that's what we call it, and Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, April 16th, 2021. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Heather Parton, writer for Salon.com, proprietor of the Uber blog Hullabaloo. Also on the program today, David Feldman of the David Feldman Show. Meanwhile, released video shows Chicago police shot and killed a 13-year-old boy with his hands raised. Meanwhile, shooter in Indianapolis FedEx warehouse kills 8, including himself. Worldwide COVID infections surge as stateside hospitalizations climb. Biden said to be hesitant of optics, and that's why he's keeping the refugees admitted into this country at a number lower than the Trump administration. Republicans laid bare they can't figure out how to counteroffer on the jobs and infrastructure bill. AOC splits with the New York congressional delegation over state and local tax deductions to end up saving the wealthiest Americans the vast majority of money. Meanwhile, Vanita Gupta on track to be confirmed to be the Associate Attorney General. U.S. sanctions Russia over its cyber hacking. Meanwhile, the Biden administration says evidence thin on that Russian Taliban bounty story. Biden's DOJ still seizing land for the border wall. However, the administration is also lifting a ban on fetal tissue research. And lastly, the DOD says UFOs are real. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Emma Vigeland is out for the day. I will be here with just Matt and Brendan on the line, and of course our guest. I exaggerate a little bit about the DOD saying that UFOs are real. They did confirm that leaked photos and videos of the unidentified aerial phenomenon taken in 2019 are indeed legitimate images of unexplained objects.
Which is not to say aliens.
Exactly. They're just simply aerial objects that they will not identify or cannot identify. I suspect they have an idea of what it is, but they're not going to tell us. And that does not mean it's necessarily aliens.
E.T.
Yeah, I would say not. I do like the fact that they don't say unidentified flying objects, because that would give everybody, that would legitimize things too much. They call it unidentified aerial phenomena. So,
well, also it might not be flying, it might be hovering or something like that. So
good point. That's a UAP instead of a UFO.
Doesn't sound as scary.
No, it doesn't. Let's talk about the Adam Toledo video that dropped in Chicago. It is, we won't play the video. It's not hard to find it. You can find it on the Chicago Tribune website. There are actually two different angles on the Chicago Tribune website. A police officer chasing after a 13-year-old boy in an alley. Apparently, they were called to the scene by artificial intelligence that had signaled there had been a gunshot fired somewhere. The boy is running down an alley. There is a wooden fence to the boy's right, and the police officer is yelling at him to stop. The boy stops at a gap in the fence. There is video from a security camera pretty far away that may or may not show him making a tossing motion with something behind the fence. The police officer essentially stops and yells at him to turn around, to raise his hands. He raises his hands, and within a second, he is shot by the police officer, dead. And the police officers purportedly found a gun against that wooden fence. It's unclear from the clips I've seen whether the body camera is continuous throughout that. In other words, there's no cuts, because of course, it's not. It certainly happened in the past that police officers have placed guns and other things in certain areas, but presumably somebody has seen the body camera, and there's been no reports that the body camera was turned off at any point. This is, of course, on top of all the other, the Dante Wright killing, which is, just and the Floyd killing trial, Derek Chauvin, all happening this week. Here is Lori Lightfoot saying that Chicago failed Adam Toledo, 13-year-old boy. Here she is.
And simply put, we failed Adam. And we cannot afford to fail one more young person in our city. We must do everything we can also to eliminate the scourge of firearms from our city. Every year, the Chicago Police Department recovers more guns than New York and LA combined. Not because we have a better strategy, not because we pay more attention, but because we have too many damn guns on our streets.
It should be said, she also said that earlier, if I'm not mistaken, that he had a gun in his hand when he was shot.
Yes.
And that was
The prosecutor
overturned by the video.
Apparently also said that, that he had a gun in his hand when he was shot. And the video clearly shows both his hands up in the air before he is shot. Here is a former Chicago police superintendent saying that this was a good shooting.
Gary, what do you see?
Well, listen, first of all, I got to say that while Dan was chasing people in the 7-5, I was doing the same thing in the 4-6 precinct in the Bronx. And while I have enormous respect for Alderman Lopez, I have to disagree because, you know what? I know what's in that officer's mind because I've done it before. I've chased God knows how many people with guns. I did it as the superintendent here. And by the way, Sean, you got me very depressed listening to what's going on in Chicago, because the fact is, I ran New York's crime strategy for 7 years, 2 years under Mayor Giuliani, 5 years under Mayor Bloomberg. We know how to do this. And when I was the superintendent here, we had 50-year lows in the murder rate. It's gone up 100% since that termination back in 2015. The bottom line is we know how to do this in policing. We're not doing it. And we're not doing it for a number of reasons. The single most important factor is the politics of this country today. What I'm seeing is tons of newspaper people, news folks, trying to make what is apparently a good shooting bad. I know what was going through that officer's head because I had so many times.
Let me give a quick last word, if I can, Alderman.
So it's the press that's trying to make this into a bad shooting as opposed to a good shooting. The idea that this guy who was in charge of policing would, and I know he's being colloquial here on some level, but the idea that he would perceive this as a good shooting, a legit shooting. You know what? Like, if that's the case, why isn't the police officer just firing as the kid is running? I mean, what more can the kid do? The police officer says, "Stop! Raise your hands." And
the function of that is just to make him a stationary target.
I mean, apparently, right? Like, what's the point? If you're going to fire as soon as he complies, why would you have fired before then? Why are you chasing him so closely? Like you know, and ultimately, the problem is that they're going out and they are looking for trouble in some respects, and people who don't necessarily present a danger to our society are paying the price.
I mean, that shot spotter element. So you basically have cops who largely come from the suburban white communities around these areas, going into communities based off of a computer signal with no other context for that, and with guns. This is what happened.
I want to play this clip. This was I found this on Twitter. It's actually a series of 3 clips. This is from February 2020. So it's, you know, from a while ago. It doesn't, it's, this guy, I guess the guy's name is Ace Perry, and he's in Sampson County, North Carolina. There are 3 series of videos. He gets pulled over and he sets up, I guess he's got two phones. One might be a work phone. One might be, you know, his personal. And he puts the phone in the well of the car because he doesn't know why he's being stopped by this sheriff. We just picked the video from the in between, but it is, I mean, it's not in any way violent. Well, it's not in any way violent in terms of there's nothing being shot, but there's an undertone of a threat here. And this driver can't figure out, well, I mean, he knows why he's been pulled over, but he can't get the cop to say why. Watch this.
Absolutely no sense.
Good morning. How are you, sir? Deputy Snell with the Sampson County Sheriff's Office. You got your license and registration on you?
I do.
Okay.
All right, may I ask what the stop is for, sir?
I'll let you know as soon as you give me your ID. Who you work for there? Your shirt.
Delmar Oil Company.
Delmar Oil Company?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How long you been there?
May I ask why that is?
Well, I'm just talking to you. I see your shirt there. I'm just asking. Is it wrong to ask you questions about where you work?
Well, I'm just trying to figure out what that has to do with the stop.
Okay. All right. Well, if you don't want, just casual conversation, that's fine.
Listen,
I got you stopped there. You're driving 65.
Information gathered.
Wait. Go back because you got to hear. He just explains to him why he's being stopped. I mean, let me tell you. I want people to think about what could possibly be the reason why this guy's being stopped. Listen to this. It's stunning. I've never even heard of anybody getting stopped for this.
Is it wrong to ask you questions about where you work?
Well, I'm just trying to figure out what that has to do with the stop.
Okay. All right. Well, if you don't want, just casual conversation, that's fine. Listen, I got you stopped there. You're driving 65, and speed limit 70. I'm just wondering what's wrong. I mean, you okay?
Other than.
You okay? I mean, you ain't
traveling 5 miles below the speed limit.
Yes, sir. I'm just checking on you. That's all I'm doing. Okay.
Yes, sir.
You good?
I'm great.
Awesome.
How are you?
I'm doing better than I deserve, You got the paperwork for the vehicle?
It's actually a rental car. The only paperwork that I have is via email.
It's what?
A rental car.
But what were you saying about something? You said something right after that.
The only paperwork they give you is via email.
Okay. You pull it up digitally?
I can.
Okay. How long you got it for?
Until I decide to take it back.
Oh, okay. They don't have like a scheduled day to return it?
They do, but unfortunately for my schedule right now, I'm not able to.
I think that's the end of that's the end of anyways this installment of it. A couple of things that are just amazing. The guy was pulled over because he was going 65 in a 70-mile-an-hour zone. Has anybody ever like listening to the word, like, well, I imagine maybe this is not that there are black people maybe who have been pulled over, but are there any white people who have ever been pulled over for going 5 miles under the speed limit when the speed limit's 70?
No, I remember just driving around Fargo, just basically because I had nothing to do listening to podcasts. I would regularly go like 15 in a 25 or stuff like that because you're just hanging out.
But
I was never bothered. That was never I never had to worry about cops.
But the idea of going 65 miles an hour on a 70-mile-an-hour highway and getting pulled is just absurd. It's just absurd. The better than I deserve, that's Dave Ramsey thing. So this is a cop who listens to a right-wing radio. You can see the other things here. I mean, and the cop comes up at the end when he realizes he's being videotaped and gives the guy also wants to know where he's coming from, where he's been driving for back and forth. And he comes up and he gives the driver a warning and says, "I'm not going to ticket you today. I'm just going to give you a warning." And the guy looks at the thing and he's like, what am I getting the warning for? And he goes out and he asks the cop, but the cop sees that he's got a video camera. I mean, this is the context in which, and so the point is, what is the relationship between that traffic stop, in quotes, and the shootings we see? Is just simply that there is an enormous amount of police in this country, and it's a function of our society, writ large, that necessarily, as soon as they see a black person, there is an elevated threat. And it either manifests itself in randomly pulling over a person on the highway or pulling the trigger on your weapon just in the blink of an eye. And I don't know. I don't know how that. I don't know how you don't start dealing with that without wholesale changes in policing, like no traffic stops. And like very, very, very narrow situations where you're following anyone, you're running after anybody while holding a gun. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking to Heather Parton, or as you may know her, Digby. Be right back after this. Folks, just a reminder, this program is sponsored in part by Sunset Lakes CBD.com. Sunset Lakes CBD 420 sale started a week ago, and it will run through the 23rd. So we're right in the middle of it. Folks, you can use the coupon code 420 and get 30% off their entire purchase. There has been a lot of controversy about this 420 thing. I got an email last night from somebody saying that was the longtime listener, Susan, claims that 420 was the police code, saying that they found, and that apparently, I mean, I did some fact checking on this, not the case. It is more back, and there was a medical marijuana legalization bill in California named 420, but Matt, when you're right, you're right. I shouldn't have doubted you, particularly when it comes to this.
Right.
It turns out that supposedly it came from some high school kids in Oakland in the 70s who would gather at around 420 every day to smoke pot, and they would say they'd see each other in the hallways and go like 420, that type of thing. So nevertheless, now 40 years later, 50 years later, you get 30% off of Sunset Lake CBD's entire line of CBD products. They have 30% off of tinctures, which I use to help myself sleep. Gummies, hemp flower. Matt likes to use those smalls. The chocolate fudge, the CBD infused chocolate fudge, and all the other CBD products. Use a code 420 for 30% off. The sale ends on April 23rd, so don't miss out. Don't forget, they also have a new product, Cbd Dog Biscuits. They blended our CBD oil with 3 simple ingredients, peanut butter, pumpkin, and oat flour, to create delicious biscuits designed to comfort your 4-legged friend. The treats each have 5 milligrams of CBD and contain no artificial flavorings or sweeteners. Am I the only one who sort of thinks that, like, I would eat those?
I was thinking I want some for my cats, but I chilled them.
That doesn't sound good to you, like peanut butter, pumpkin, and oat flour?
The peanut butter sounds good.
Pumpkin sounds good. Oat flour sounds good to me.
I've never heard of oat
I
flour.
have a sense of like already what that tastes like, but this is for your dogs. It's got 5 milligrams CBD. So check it out. SunsetLakeCBD.com. Great company. And they are giving you 30% off for the next week with the code 420. Good time to stock up on some of those tinctures for me, actually. And the pre-rolls. So check it out. Also, I've told this story many times before, and some time ago, my sisters and I wanted to provide meals for my mom because cooking is less of an option for her these days. And we wanted to make sure she was eating well. And so what we did is we did some investigating, and we finally decided on Freshly at freshly.com as the service that we wanted to send her meals. They offer delicious meals. They go directly to your door. There's no cooking required. You just got to heat them up. It takes just about 3 minutes to heat these things up in a microwave. And but we knew that my mom would not let us pay for it. So my sisters told her that Freshly was advertising with the show, and they had given, me like a lifetime free meals. And so she has been eating Freshly for probably a year and a half or so. And whenever I would talk to her on the phone, like, oh my God, the food was great. My favorite is the steak peppercorn. And I've told all my friends about it. And you're so lucky to have them advertising on the show. And of course they weren't. And then about, 6 months ago, we got approached, and just coincidentally, they wanted to advertise on the show. And I couldn't have been happier. I still did not get a lifetime free Freshly, but nevertheless, my mom's happy. Now I'm happy too. You can visit freshly.com. Ordering is super easy. They have 30 meals, like my mom's favorite steak peppercorn. They also have stuff like chicken pesto bowl, sausage baked penne. There's like 30 different, maybe there's more now. $6.16 per meal for our listeners to try out Freshly. Right now, Freshly's offering our listeners $40 off your first 2 orders when you go to freshly.com/majority. You don't have to stress about dinner anymore. Go to freshly.com/majority for $40 off your first 2 orders. That's freshly.com/majority for $40 off your first 2 orders. Okay. Welcome to the show. The proprietor of the Uber blog Hullabaloo, and the columnist at salon.com, Heather Digby Parton. Heather, you there? There she is.
Hello.
Hi, Heather. Thanks for joining me.
My pleasure. Good to be here.
Emma is out for the day, so it's just the two of us. We had planned to talk predominantly about Afghanistan and the announcement this week, and I want to get to that. I want to spend some time out. You wrote a great piece up, but we have to start with just sort of the tragedy on top of tragedy on top of horror this week.
Yeah.
We've had a rash of mass killings, which is, one issue that is in sort of parallel in the context of our society. 8 people, including a killer in at a FedEx facility in Indianapolis last night. And then, of course, the video that came out of Adam Toledo. And earlier in the week, Dante Wright killed by a police officer, while the murder trial, Derek Chauvin, for the killing of George Floyd is taking place. The defense rests. I think they have only their closing statements in the beginning of next week. And so, there just seems to be this sort of like, I don't know, numbness or just sort of a passive quality. And then you mix that in with like the idea of like 700 people dying a day, still from COVID, maybe more actually, 900. You really start to wonder, like, what's the timing on wrapping up this whole society thing?
Well, that's a good way of putting it. I mean, it is numb, where it's as if we treat these things as an ongoing rolling set of natural disasters, rather than things that are actually within our grasp to deal with. I mean, the COVID crisis, of course, is a natural disaster, but we developed methods of dealing with it, which for some reason we just can't seem to really wrap our minds around among a lot of Americans. They just don't want to accept that you have to do certain things, even though we've got this cure or this prevention that's unfolding rapidly with the vaccines. They still can't wrap their minds around the fact that we still have to kind of be careful for a while. So we've got surges happening all over the country, and that's one thing. But gun violence, this is an ongoing disaster that we could fix with policing and with the mass shootings that we have. I mean, these are not things that we can't deal with. No other country in the world has anything like this. We are by far, we have the highest rates of incarceration, we have the highest rates of gun violence, we have the highest rates of police killing of any developed country in the world. And it's unbelievable to me that we still, a lot of people on Twitter today are putting out, in Texas, for instance, there was one case of potential voter fraud, and they raced to go and stop, any possibility that anybody could ever commit voter fraud in the future, and it designed to suppress the vote. But, gun violence, it's just, we shrug our shoulders. With policing, I was listening to what you said earlier about the idea of traffic stops. And, I think that we're starting to see, this may be a little bit of good news on that front, which is that I think we're starting to see some creative thinking in terms of how to deal with policing. And one of the things is that they're doing some experiments with not having police do traffic control. That's just not going to be their job. It'll be somebody else. And so when there's a traffic stop, there's no chance you're going to get arrested, right? It's not, nobody's going to, take you in. For 99% of the time, people will pull over if the traffic cop or traffic, I don't know what they'll call them, the traffic controller stops you and gives you a ticket, or they just record your license plate, send you the ticket. You can, protest it in some other way, online or something like that, whatever the plan is. That would take, a bunch of these confrontations out of circulation. You just wouldn't have that if you don't have armed, stormtroopers coming up to the car and suddenly seeing that, oh my God, there's a danger here, and using this pretextual thing where they take it, they just use the traffic stop as an excuse to stop somebody and rouse them, which is essentially what these traffic stops for driving while black are. There's just always see a black guy in a car, and I didn't like the cut of his jib, so I pulled him over for an expired tag or whatever it was. So that's one thing. And then there's the idea that instead of having police respond to issues with mental health, where someone's having an episode of some sort, and you send out mental health workers instead, and they're doing that in Denver, and it's working great. I mean, really great, because cops are not prepared to deal with that, and they're not good at dealing with it, really. I mean, that just isn't something they know how to do, and I don't really think they have the temperament for it. That's just not the kind of thing that
I think that's, I mean, yes, I think and we could probably argue about which one of those three elements, right? They're not geared towards, they're not trained for it, or they don't have a temperament, the type of person who, broadly speaking, not all cops, probably, you're attracted to certain professions because you have a certain personality type, and then you mix that in with a certain percentage of these people who have deeply held racist beliefs, or they, whatever, they come from outside in the suburbs, and they don't like, they have a mentality like they're going to war. And when you have a mentality you're going to war, your fingers on that trigger, and, or you demand compliance, or, whatever it feels like, the idea of training racism out of cops is not going to happen, or it's just not a good strategy. Like, you need to basically prevent them from certain contacts they have with people, and continue to narrow the contexts in which they are deployed.
Absolutely. And I think, and I'm we're seeing some of this it's the most creative thinking that we've seen. I mean, the big idea over the last 20 or 30 years was this broken windows idea, which meant you had to go in and rouse everybody, because there would be a feeling of security in the community, and people would be less likely to create trouble if they saw that there was order. And that sort of contributed to this. Also, the fact, and when we talk about Afghanistan, we can see the other side of this, is that we've militarized the police tremendously in the last 20 years. Not only have we not given them the sort of, this community policing idea, not only have we sort of abandoned that, we went the opposite direction and started giving all kinds of surplus military equipment and everything to police. And part of this too is just this attitude. And I talked about this a bit in my piece this morning, because I was talking about tasers, which I've written a lot about over the years. And so for Salon, I talked about this because the issue of the police officer, Kim Potter, up in Minnesota, thinking that she was grabbing her taser, and she allegedly accidentally grabbed her gun. It's not the first time that's happened. It's happened, they figure, at least 20 times, where a cop says that the reason they shot someone is because they thought they'd grabbed their taser. There's been a lot of research on this. And one of the things I found out that was interesting that I didn't know before is that they actually designed the taser to be like a gun, because that's what police wanted. Now, that's ridiculous, because you wouldn't have to have a taser that looks like a gun. There are a million ways you could deploy a device like that. Somebody said like a flashlight that had you used your thumb instead of like a trigger finger, something, so that there's just no concept of mistaking it. But the cops like it because, of course, it's an intimidation factor partially, right? You point that thing at somebody, it's a scary thing to have anything that looks like a gun pointed at you. And this is the point I'm getting at, is that a lot of this is just about, coercive compliance. No questions asked. A cop pulls you over. You don't have a right to say anything, do anything, or make a mistake, because they are loaded for bear from the minute that you have any contact with them. I mean, and I can't even imagine what it's like to be a young black guy. I mean, my God, it must be terrifying to be in the presence, to be in the presence of a cop who's sitting there, hey, dude, tell me what's going on here. And I mean, even I am terrified in front of a cop, and I'm the last person on earth that should be, but I don't know. I've had some real attitude from police at different times. It's not like they're all nice to anybody. And it's because of this attitude of this dominance thing, where they are trained in a sort of a military fashion to come in and dominate every session. And they're standing there armed like RoboCops with a taser on one hip and a gun on the other. And they're looking at people. And, if you're a young Black guy and they're already in that mode, just like the lieutenant that was pulled over the other day in Virginia, or I guess it was a couple months ago, but the video just came out, where he put his hands out the window and he's going, I am afraid to get out of the car. Listen to me. I mean, he was very coherent, very, logical in what he was saying. He said, look, I'm afraid to get out of the car. I totally could understand that. I could see it in his face, the way they were talking to him, that dominance thing. You're going to ride the lightning, that kind of stuff. I mean, this is an attitude among American police that has got to change. And you're right, you can't take the racism out, but you can certainly change the idea that it's okay to talk to people that way.
I'm not even convinced that you can do that. I mean, I think you can try, but I just think that the answer is to continually whittle down their
mandate.
Their portfolio. They have a much narrower situation. There is no reason to be going like that video of, like you said, of the guy in the National Guard. There's no reason to be coming up to that car with your guns out. There's absolutely no reason for you even to be going to that car. And they shouldn't do it. You see it's these fishing expeditions,
right?
And they go in and they're like, but these fishing expeditions are dangerous. Well, then don't go on them, because there's no evidence that it's actually doing any benefit to society. And so much of it is generating, money for small towns or for, jurisdictions. And there is a feedback loop within these organizations that as they get more, they get bigger, and as they get bigger, they want more, and you need to shrink them. You need to shrink them. And if you have other issues within a society, then you use the money that you get from shrinking those budgets and those entities, and you pour it into those other things to deal with those same issues. So, if cops are going out to deal with homeless people, well, cut the mandate of the cops, save the money. And, in Austin, they're doing that now. Actually, they buy a hotel and they house people. I mean, there's because the way that we're doing it is simply not working. And it is maintaining this inequity in society that is, I agree with you. I told this story many times about, and I won't go into it again, but just, when I was out as an actor in LA, I met a guy, long story short, he had a Range Rover, and he had been pulled over in the past, 4 weeks, like a half a dozen times. And he had called the police department and said, hey, I own this car. I keep getting pulled over. Is there some type of sticker I can get that will signify? And the guy he spoke to said, are you Black? And he's like, yes. And he goes, yeah, I'm sorry. There's really nothing I can do about it.
That's outrageous.
And it's, I don't know how people, really make it through their lives like that. I really don't. That notion of, I think for, Chris Hayes, in his book, Colony in a Nation, I think it is, he talked about there's basically two different experiences of policing in this country. And one is where, the police are who you run to when you're in trouble. And the other is the police are who you run from because they're the trouble. And that is, largely on racial lines. I think it's also on class lines. People living in poverty are over policed as well. But I think, it is to be a person of color in this country and deal with the police is just a fundamentally different experience.
And also, I just want to add one point to this is that, first of all, well, 2 points, I guess. One is the tasers. Tasers are excessive force 99% of the time. I mean, I've been writing about this subject for years. The use of tasers is a compliance electroshock torture device, which is designed to make people comply with the police. And 99% of the time, it is excessive force. They did not need to deploy it. And they deploy it an awful lot of the time on mentally ill people. And people die from tasers. There's been hundreds of cases of people dying from them. They're used willy-nilly, and that should stop too. You hate to sort of bring that up in the middle of an epidemic of police shootings, because you figure, well, tasers are better than that. At least you can live through it. And I realize that. But it's really no different than if cops were beating people over the head with batons, because it is excessive force. It is a torture device. And that there has to be a reevaluation of how I'm not saying they shouldn't carry them, but there should be, like the woman, I think up in Minnesota, the police officer up there, she had no reason to use her taser on Dante Wright, much less shoot him with her gun. There was no reason to taser him. It was a traffic stop. She could have let him go. But that instant sort of agitation and reaction, I have to subdue this subject right now. And the second thing is that, there's also guns in this country. The fact that there are so many guns, and I'm not defending the police here, but I will say that there are a lot of people with guns in this country. And if we could deal with that gun problem, which God knows, it just seems so intractable. I don't even, I feel like we're just, speaking into the void here. But if we had fewer guns in our country, there would probably be fewer shootings from anybody, including the police. And, this is just one of those things that, we can't confront, because we have a whole bunch of people who are just determined that they need to have their toys, and there's no way that we're going to be allowed to control that. And it's outrageous. And it's different for us than it is with anyone else, any other developed country. And I just don't know what will change it. I mean, shooting people, mass shootings of tiny children doesn't change it. Mass shootings of country music stars, hundreds of people shot, doesn't do anything. So I don't know what it will take. And it's intensely frustrating that we just look at this stuff and go, well, gee, I really hope it works out, because that seems to be where we're at. And it's just awful.
Yep. All right. Well, let's turn to Afghanistan, because this is, you and I have been, talking in this context for 18 years, maybe. I think to a large extent, you were a blogger in the early aughts, largely a function, I think for a lot of bloggers anyways, was, a reaction to the Bush election, but also more so, I think, like in many respects, the war. The war, and I think, for a lot of people, it was more about Iraq, but it was about our entire reaction to 9/11. And, I think there was not, going to Afghanistan was not as, and invading Afghanistan was not as controversial as Iraq was, at that time. But I think it quickly became just as controversial in many respects, and certainly through the years with the drone wars, and we've been there now for almost 20 years. Joe Biden announced earlier this week that we're leaving by 9/11 unconditionally. It is not a facts on the ground. It's not an assessment. There is no context in which we would stay past that date. There is no solution. It is I don't think it's quite a slam dunk, but it's definitely the thing that we should do. But I think people should understand that on a large part, we went in there, we broke it. And the point is, we can't fix it, but it's still broken. And it's gonna, and that breakage is gonna cost people in Afghanistan. And we need to mitigate it, but we broke it, and it's broken. Right? I mean, that's the whole thing. It's just broken.
Absolutely. And the 20 years that we've been there has, made it has made, very little difference. It's not to say it hasn't made none, and it had made any, because there is some belief that the country has, changed in some fundamental ways that may make it possible to mitigate some of what we're seeing as maybe the worst case scenario with the Taliban taking over and going back to the way it was in the late 90s, which, let's face it, that was partially our doing as well. I mean, we armed the Mujahideen, we don't need to go into the whole history there, but, that whole thing,
we should to a certain extent. I mean, we armed the Mujahideen against the Soviet Union. We encouraged and funded the madrasas in Pakistan as a way of, and Osama bin Laden as a way of fighting the Soviets. So we created this monster that we are now going to leave the country to.
Right. We've been involved there for a very long time, longer than just the invasion of Afghanistan after 9/11. I mean, we were there long before in involving ourselves in that. And, think about that for a minute. I mean, you had the Soviet invasion there, and which was a disaster for them as well. And we decided to use that as one of our many proxy wars against the, communism. That blew up in our face, just like Vietnam blew up in our face. I mean, this keeps happening. These proxy wars, these small wars that we continue. I mean, I guess it's better than having a world war or a nuclear war, but nonetheless, it's still war, and it ends up being disastrous for everybody involved. And this one, it was such a knee-jerk reaction. I remember thinking it at the time, and you were barely allowed to even think these things, if you recall, the hysteria after 9/11. But I remember thinking when George Bush went to the World Trade Center and stood on the rubble with the firemen, and everybody was crying, and he gave his bullhorn moment, which was considered to be the greatest thing since Winston Churchill, or FDR saying we have nothing to fear but fear itself. And he said, we're coming to get them real soon. I hear you, and we're going to get them real soon, or whatever he said. And all of that just seems so primitive to me. I remember hearing it and just kind of going, really? I mean, is this, I get it. I mean, I understand the impulse. I'm not immune. 9/11 was a nightmare. It was one of the most traumatic things that's ever happened to this country. I get it. But the idea that our government would respond in such a, with such primitive passion to a situation they understood from, well, maybe they didn't understand, but many people understood, was extremely complicated. And it was not going to get any less complicated. And God knows it didn't, because they immediately pivoted to Iraq, and then we really made a mess of things. But even Afghanistan itself, even that particular way that we had of dealing with it, there was a cathartic aspect to it. It's like when a bear comes into town and mauls somebody, they immediately rush out with their guns and they kill a bear. It doesn't even matter which one it is, just as long as you kill something to sort of, get your revenge on whatever it is. That was kind of the feeling. It was so primitive. And I thought, God, we're a military superpower, the most powerful military on earth in human history. And this is how we react. I mean, we don't have any more sophistication than that. There's no way that we can kind of go forward here more thoughtfully. And it wasn't just the neocons and the Republicans, at least at that juncture. We had the whole Congress out singing God Bless America on the steps of the Capitol. I mean, this was an American response. And, like I said, I don't want to say that I don't understand the feeling, but on an intellectual basis, I was always, and it was one of the reasons why I started writing in that format that I was writing, was just, really, this is the best we can do. I mean, here it is. It's, we're in the 21st century, and we can't respond with any more I don't know, sophistication than this. And so that was the beginning, and it was like everybody knew that it was going to be different. It was going to be impossible to get out. Everybody knew that what they were getting in. Remember, there was all this talk. I mean, it was called, what did they call it? The graveyard of empires, right?
Yes.
I mean, history has said from the beginning. So was it hubris? I mean, no country on earth is less entitled to hubris in this particular regard than the United States of America, because Vietnam had just ended,
right.
25 years before. So there was, 25 years before. So there was no reason for us to think that we were somehow going to go in there. But that was, of course, that's another story. That's the neocon, starry-eyed neocons bringing democracy to the rest of the world. And the whole thing is just is maddening. And here we are, and yeah, it's broken. And we broke it. A lot of people helped, but we broke it. And now we're going to have to live with that failure on both a moral and a political basis. And, I frankly admire Biden for having the guts to do that as a Democrat, because I think that people were hoping it would be a Republican who would get out of this thing. Richard Nixon was the one who pulled the plug on Vietnam finally. And I think that was a relief to a lot of Democrats, because the Democrats had to, bear the burden of the defeat in Vietnam. And Joe Biden will probably have to bear that burden as well, in the minds of many people in the United States.
And I don't think he's going to pay that big of a price of it. I mean, we didn't, somehow there was no, there was talk of Obama, when he pulled out, and it leading to ISIS and whatnot. And, we still have a massive presence in Iraq in the form of an embassy, if you can call it that. I mean, it's really sort of just like a massive compound. But the responsibility that we have to Afghanistan, when we went in there, I'm sure you remember, part of the sales pitch was like, we're not gonna leave it in ruins. We're going in there and we're gonna do, like, in fact, Bush had to sort of took some heat from like supposedly nation building, because he had said during the campaign that he wasn't going to do any nation building. And in fact, we were supposedly going in there to nation build. And the Taliban were horrible to women at that time. And there's every reason to believe that they're going to be horrible to women again. Women have made some advances in Afghanistan, from my understanding, but not necessarily huge, broad, widespread, because you still have the government can do one thing, but culturally there's still problems there. But it's just announced today that the Biden administration, according to the New York Times, is going to keep the target of refugee admissions this year at the historically low level set by the Trump administration, walking back an earlier pledge to welcome more than 60,000 refugees in the United States, supposedly because of the optics of what's going on with the immigration at the border, which is absurd and obscene. And we owe Afghanistan so much. The bare minimum is to open our doors to Afghanis who believe that when the Taliban comes in, they are going to be killed because of their involvement with the U.S. presence over 20 years, or that that they just want a better life because of what the Taliban is certainly going to end up. May not happen immediately, but over time, that's what's going to happen in that country. And the idea that we wouldn't fulfill that obligation, right? Like, these people need to come and come now. And the idea that we wouldn't fulfill that obligation after what we've done in that country is just obscene. It's just obscene. And the political reasons are absurd. The idea like there's going to be a big outcry of like Afghani civilians coming into this country. I mean, give me a break. It's
even if there is, who cares? I mean, that's irrelevant. And, it's interesting because I didn't realize that Joe Biden, and apparently in his first year as a senator, is really, he's been around a long time. was during the debate over the Vietnamese refugees that were, had helped the United States through that long ordeal and were in danger in Vietnam. And apparently Biden was against it then, and against bringing those Vietnamese back. Now, it seems completely bizarre to me that, Mr. Compassion, whose entire, presidential brand is his great, loving
humanity, right?
It would not have changed in that regard. He was a much, more, flinty character when he was young. I mean, he was not like, he didn't have this great, sort of aura of superhumanity that he has now. So I'm not surprised that he did that then, being the person that he was then, but a lot's changed. So this really surprised me to hear this. And I'm hoping they change their mind. Well, they have to. The immorality of what happened with Afghanistan is overwhelming, regardless of what we do. Just the fact that we helped set up a situation that caused a great trauma in our own country, and then went and created a great trauma in their country. And I shouldn't say we created it. Their country was already in trauma, but we exacerbated it. And were unable to achieve the things that most people knew they couldn't achieve. That was the big neocon dream. Remember, that was their whole thing, was they were going to turn the Middle East into the flowering of democracy. Every country, they were going to make it all into Jeffersonian democracies. It was absurd. We all were watching this going, are you kidding? Nothing has ever seemed as naive as what they had in their mind, to use military force to create something like that, and at the point of a gun. But they apparently thought they could do it, and that experiment went horribly awry. And the immorality of that we're going to have to live with. And the lesson of that, again, in my lifetime, twice now, we've had to withdraw from wars that left, terrible carnage behind us, and left the people there to their own devices. And in Vietnam, they have recovered now. It's been a long time, of course, and there was tremendous suffering, but they did manage to do that. My hopes are that Afghanistan will be able to do that too. Nothing would make me happier than to see the country pull itself together and be able to create something of a self-governance that doesn't include a repressive, authoritarian, fundamentalist religious sect that wants to, basically, oppress women and anyone who's not a, patriarchal male. But whatever happens, the idea that we would not help these people who helped the U.S. through 20 years of that occupation is just, it's unacceptable. It is absolutely, even, Gerald Ford, opened the doors for the Vietnamese refugees to come here. And you remember the horror of all of that too. The boat people and everything, people escaping. And this is another one of those situations, and we have to do it. We have to do it. And if Joe Biden can't do that, well, then, none of this really makes a lot of sense to me. If everything about it, yes, we need to get out, it's expensive, and we shouldn't have our troops in danger, blah, blah, blah. But, we have to get out because it's the wrong thing to do. And part of the only way we can right any of that is to bring those people here or somewhere. Whatever. They've got to go somewhere.
Well, and let's be clear, like the argument that it's better for Afghanistan at this point, for us to leave, is there's an argument that it's not. There's, the Afghani, there's a reason why Blinken's over there, and he is, saying like, we're not going to totally abandon you. We're going to have drones, and we're going to have special ops or something like that, which,
there will be CIA there for sure.
Of course, which we have everywhere.
Yeah.
And, it is because it is bad for us to be there, that we have an ongoing war that is, the longest war that we've ever been involved in. I would say, if we would have put more troops in there, but look, we've killed In Afghanistan, the civilian numbers are sort of hard to figure out because we underreport how many we killed. But I think like the official number is probably like 40, 50,000 civilians have been killed as a direct function of us. Maybe 30,000 as a direct function of us. But there's an underreporting that we always get with the drone warfare in particular. But what we need to, I mean, this is, we need this country to go through a period of reparations. And I'm looking at this hemisphere and the other, and frankly, within our country. But Heather, that's all the time that we have this week. We'll see you again in the future. Thank you so much for your time.
Anytime.
I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, folks, we got to take a quick break. We'll be right back. All right, folks, just wrapping up here. That is quite a week. We will be back Monday with this program. Emma will rejoin us. Always a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us. And, we did have a bill, reparations, that got out of committee this week. I don't know that it's going to make it to the floor, but at one point, we break things and there are things that we cannot fix, but we can maybe with some funding, mitigate some of the harm. So hope springs eternal, and we will see you on Monday. And for those of you sticking around, boy, oh boy, do we have a treat. Let's I'll take the break later. Let's bring him on. I understand he's a little bit okay. There's David Feldman. There's a picture of David Feldman. Do we have him on the
Hello?
Oh, there he is.
Am I going to do this?
They won't see the image.
They won't see that image. Okay. David, welcome to the show.
So I'm going to do the show?
Yeah, we're on now. I understand.
Okay.
I don't want to express this, but I just saw from Brendan that you have some hesitation, and I was not aware of that. To come on today,
all right. You've put me in an uncomfortable position.
I didn't. I honestly, Brendan sent me the message very, very just a moment ago, and I'm sorry. Is there a problem?
No. I think you've put me in a awkward position that I have to come on after that discussion about Afghanistan, and I don't know. I'd rather reschedule.
I mean, we can reschedule. I know this is disturbing, but I mean, we've talked about, difficult stuff on the show all the time. That's sort of part of the.
Well, yeah, but
the show.
Like I have to, you're putting me in an uncomfortable position because I have to respond to some of the things you've said, and I don't want people to misapprehend what I think.
Respond to some of the things I've said in the conversation with Heather
about Afghanistan, the things you've been saying about Biden's decision to surrender in Afghanistan. And I
didn't say that.
I don't want to be the guy. I don't want to be that guy, but I don't want to be the guy who says we shouldn't be surrendering to the Afghanistan.
I didn't say that we were surrendering. I didn't say that.
Okay.
Are you
right? And Rudy Giuliani,
right.
Rudy Giuliani and Donald Trump didn't say storm the Capitol on January 6th. I mean,
wait a second.
you know how to say things, Sam, and not say them at the same time. You know exactly what you're doing. And that's why I told Brendan I'm not really comfortable talking to you about surrendering in Afghanistan.
I didn't. Okay, wait a second. So are you suggesting that you are characterizing what Joe Biden is doing as surrendering?
You're putting words in my mouth.
I'm asking.
No, you're putting words in my mouth. I'm not that guy.
Well,
I'm a pacifist. I'm a pacifist. So I don't want to be put in a position where I have to say that people like you are doing a disservice to, you're stabbing America in the back in Afghanistan. I don't want to be that guy. That's not who I am. I'm a pacifist. I'm against war in all its forms. And to have me have to come on now and say we shouldn't surrender in Afghanistan, I don't want to be that guy. I'm a pacifist.
Well, but you're being that guy. I mean,
no, I'm not. No, I'm not. We've talked about, America should, I'm against war. I hate aggression. I hate conflict. I'm a man of peace. And quite frankly, if you don't think I'm a pacifist, I will smash your face in. Seriously, that's how opposed to war I am. And I'm the least violent person you know.
Well, I'm not contending that you're not violent. You seem to be saying that this is a surrender by Biden. If you want to call it a surrender, that's fine. But do you think we should leave, or do you think we should stay?
See, I don't want to have to answer that question. I'm just saying, this is why I told Brendan I don't want to follow this conversation, because I'm saddened by this, and I don't
sad about it,
because I'm a pacifist. Okay.
Right. Okay. And so we're getting out of the country. We're not going to be waging the kind of war that we've been waging.
I think it's a little early to end our endless war in Afghanistan.
It's been 20 years, David.
20, not even 20 years. It's just a kid. It's just a kid. The war is just a kid.
So you're saying that a 19-year-old war is too young?
It's too young to just end it. And I don't want to be this guy, Sam, who has to talk this way because I'm a pacifist. But you just don't pack up and leave an endless war, especially when we're so close to winning this thing.
Wait a second. I mean, you're suggesting that we're close to winning in Afghanistan?
You're dishonoring the weapons with that sarcasm, quite frankly. And I don't want to be the guy who's saying we should stay. I'm not that guy, but you got to give the Pentagon another 15 years. We've only been there
30,
not even 20.
So you're
not even 20.
You're saying that the war should last 35 years. Why 35? Why?
Because we are so close to achieving serious headway. We are like years away in Afghanistan from achieving and making serious headway, and you're stabbing America in the back by saying, end it.
Wait, what is serious headway? What does that mean? Serious headway?
Serious headway, I would say 15 years away from serious headway. And then we all know what comes after that, a potential beachhead. I mean, I don't want to be this guy, Sam. I don't want to be the guy who's saying stay in Afghanistan. I'm from the 60s. I'm a peace guy, but you can't leave when we're only a few decades away from a potential beachhead in Afghanistan. It's a disservice to our weapons.
Wait, a disservice to our weapons. What does that mean? A beachhead? A beachhead for what? So how
a disservice to you don't care about our weapons?
What I don't. No, I don't.
You're saying that? Oh, wow, man, you are ice water through your veins, man. Really, you would say this in public, that you don't care about our weapons? Really? Wow.
No, wait.
Wow, you just revealed so
What are you
much.
drinking?
I'm having I'm having a little Irish coffee.
What? Now let me ask you a question. We wait. We stay there for 15 more years out of respect for our weapons.
Yeah.
And we get a beachhead. And then what do we do with the beachhead?
We reassess. Blue Ribbon Commission.
So
you're impatient.
Look,
you think you've cornered the market in feeling bad about the war in Afghanistan? You think you're the only one who misses our weapons? You think it doesn't pain me every day sending our warheads and our firearms off to foreign lands with no guarantee that we'll ever see them again? You think you're the only one who feels bad for our weapons?
I don't feel bad for our weapons.
You do. You're just saying that to be the devil's advocate. Of course you feel bad for the weapons.
What weapons in particular do you feel bad for?
I feel bad for the weapons that keep us safe, that put it on the line every day, and they're brave.
And what about the military personnel that we have there?
You don't get it. You don't get it.
What about civilians?
Hey, don't go there. I've known you. You knew me. Come on. You know my mother's brother, Paul. Come on. You're going to go there on that, Sam?
Uncle Paul?
My Uncle Paul? The military? You're going to bring up the troops? You're going to bring up the troops? I witnessed firsthand. I witnessed firsthand what war can do to a man. My mother's brother, Paul, came home from Vietnam.
Yeah.
And they spat on him.
They did not spit on
him. They spat on him.
There was no spitting.
There was yeah, because that's what you want to believe. And they called him a baby killer, all because when he was in Vietnam, he killed babies, a lot of them. And I had to see my Uncle Paul come home from Vietnam and get called a baby killer because he killed a lot of babies. So don't tell me that I don't care about war and the troops. I've seen the damage that it does. Okay, it's the whiny liberals, and I think you're a leftist, quite frankly. Who you lost the war for us on the home front in Vietnam. You made us fight that war.
I was
with our arms tied around our back. We could have won in Vietnam, but it was the demonstrators who lost the war.
7 or 8, I think, when the
your mother was bringing you to those anti-war rallies and undermining the war effort.
Right. And do you see that happening here? I mean,
yes, you're stabbing America in the back, and you're dishonoring the memory of the hundreds of thousands of weapons we've left on the battlefield. Did they explode in vain? Is that what you're saying? How do we explain to the manufacturers of all those warheads that they were exploded for no reason? Is that you want to look at the people who own stock in Raytheon and General Dynamics? You want to look them straight in the face and say all those bombs that you dropped on Afghanistan were for naught? All those bombs, all your bombs are never coming home for nothing? Is that what you want to say? Are you willing to go on record and say that, Sam? I don't think you are.
Well, I mean, I am, but that's not the point. I mean,
you think you're being funny. Oh, I am. You think you're being funny. Jesus, we're talking about endless war, Sam. We have an endless war in Afghanistan, and you're trivializing it.
I don't think that we're pulling out because of mass protest. Have you seen mass protest?
It's the mass protest. It's the way you treat the people who work at Raytheon and Dow Chemical and General Dynamics. You make them feel bad about what they do. And it undermines the war effort. And it's why we lost in Vietnam.
Because people made the folks at like General Electric feel bad because of all the weapons they were building.
Yeah. You're stabbing us in the back because you're impatient. You're a child. I shouldn't be. This is why I told Brendan I don't want to come on today, because I had to follow that conversation. You're an impatient child. You want instant gratification, and I can't believe that it's not even 20 years in Afghanistan, and you want to bring the weapons home. I can't believe it.
Let me ask you this. David. First off, I mean, 20 years is a long time for a war. It's the longest war that we've ever participated in.
No, your generation wants instant gratification. That's the problem.
My generation is has basically well, all right.
You're impatient. Mommy, now. Mommy, give it to me now. I showed you the last time we had dinner. I showed you the
mid-50s.
Well, you know what? You should know better, and you should act like you're in your mid-50s instead of the child that you are. Impatient, instant gratification. There's a timetable for bringing the weapons home.
What is the timetable?
You have to understand the timetable. The war, it's a war on terror. It's an endless war on terror, which puts America on, a permanent war footing against Islamo-fascists. Mm-hmm. And you have to think of Islamo-fascists like you would the Nazis, or Dax Shepard. You have to fight them every step of the way. They're not just.
World War II lasted, by any measure, less than 6 years.
Too soon. We didn't end the war. We didn't take on Stalin because of the protest movement back home. We lost World War II. We surrendered half of Europe to communism, to Joseph Stalin, because people like you, it's too much fighting. Let's end the war. We'll just cave to Joseph Stalin and give him all of Eastern Europe.
David,
we didn't win we lost World War II because of people like you, who are children.
Tell me about your time in the military.
I would have served in Desert Storm in 1991, but I had a football injury. I destroyed my knees blowing a man for Super Bowl tickets.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but I would have served because I was for that war.
What do you feel about the idea that we're not taking in refugees?
Now is not the time to bring people into America. And I say this, I wouldn't be alive if it weren't for Ellis Island. America saved my entire family from the ravages of World War II. So it pains me to say this. I got mine. I don't care about anybody else. And it pains me to say that, but I'm an adult. America saved my family during World War II. If you're a refugee, go find another country to save you. Believe me, when I see the Statue of Liberty, my eyes well up.
We've done enough, is what you're saying.
I'm saying I got mine.
Fair.
I got what I needed from America. That doesn't mean everybody should be able to get what they want from America. And it pains me to say that, but I'm an adult.
Well,
I'm an adult.
You're an adult. All right. Let me ask you this, David. I want to just turn. Can we just agree to disagree on this?
No, you don't. You have you hate America, and you rather see us surrender and lose face. I mean, what about pride? What about just the pride of losing a war? You have kids. You tell your kids, hey, don't worry, you lost the soccer game. It's okay. No, you don't lose. We don't lose wars because that's a matter of pride. It's a matter of pride. And you know what? What?
You want to keep that war going on until
for pride to save face.
Yeah.
And you don't end a permanent war. This is a permanent war on terror. You want a timetable? We leave Afghanistan when we have achieved a permanent war on terror. The war on terror is not permanent yet. When it's permanent, then we can leave Afghanistan and go fight terror somewhere else.
My understanding, David, I didn't want to get into any of this, frankly, and I don't think it's. You're stabbing America. You know what? During Vietnam, it was in the back. You're stabbing America in the heart by saying in the heart. David, my understanding is you got a new job recently. Is that true?
I'm running for Gutfeld.
Right.
Yeah. He's a good man. He's read a book. I think he's even read more than one book.
Are you enjoying it? Are you?
It's an open and safe environment, and it's a free and easy writing room, and there's kindness first. He always says, it's not important to be funny. It's to be careful who we're targeting. What are we saying? Who are we targeting? He's a great, kind man.
Do you have
and he doesn't smell. He does not smell, despite what he looks like. He does not smell or spell. He can't spell either.
Right.
Parts of his brain have been scooped out by a lobotomist.
I'm glad that's working out for you.
And we don't stab America in the back like they do over at the Majority Report.
Yeah.
Do you know the PAL doctrine?
You break it, you own it?
No, that's, I believe that was Chris D'Elia's pickup line to a 17-year-old girl.
Okay.
I break it, I own it. I think before he deflowered.
Yeah, this is good. So you've been working at Gutfeld for a while then.
Yeah. And one of the things I learned is when you go to war, you have a clear and attainable objective.
Overwhelming. Okay, yes, right. I got you.
And an exit strategy.
And your exit strategy is no exit.
No, the fighting continues until we achieve a permanent state of war. That's the exit strategy.
That's not an exit strategy. What's the vibe in the room at Gutfeld?
Oh, it's we make fun of the displacement theory, and the idiots who think Dominion rigged the election in favor of Joe Biden. A lot of reading. We have a book club.
Yeah.
We're reading Ulysses, James Joyce. Greg is a big fan of Ulysses, and very well read, very well educated. Greg Gutfeld.
David, let me just thank you for coming on today. I would love to hear more in the future, but we sadly have run out of time.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So I'm sorry that this sort of broke down into this.
Well, I would have preferred to, not have to come on the show and be the guy, because that's not who I am. I'm not the guy who says, don't surrender to the Taliban.
Right.
I'm not that guy. I have long hair. I use the F word a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I smoke dope.
Yeah.
I listen to rock and roll. So I'm not the guy who's for continuing the war in Afghanistan. But I don't want to be that guy. You put me in a corner.
I put you in a corner.
Yeah. I mean, I have faded jeans on right now. And I call people brother. Sometimes I'll even say, hey, brother, man. So I'm not the guy who's going to be saying, let's stay in. I don't want to be that guy, but you've kind of forced me.
No, I'm sorry, brother, man. Listen,
what would you tell Joe Biden if you were in the White House, in the Oval Office with him, just you and him?
Privately?
Yeah.
It is an honor to be in this room. And I have not looked at the Daily Mail in the past month, Mr. President. I have not seen the pictures of Hunter with his meth teeth, because I think, who cares if Hunter Biden has meth teeth and makes videos for Pornhub and and does crack cocaine with prostitutes. That's none of my business, Mr. President. You know why it's none of my business if Hunter Biden smokes crack with prostitutes and would be in jail if he were black and not the son of the president? You know why it doesn't matter to me? Because it's not Eric Trump or Don Jr. smoking crack with if they smoked crack with a prostitute, Mr. President, then that would be compromise. And we should look into that because they could bribe Donald Trump. If people got their hands on photographs of Hunter Biden, Eric Biden, Donald Trump Jr. Biden with meth teeth and a prostitute and crack cocaine, that would be compromise if that were on Trump's son's laptop. And we would have to investigate that, but not if it's Hunter Biden. That's what I would say, to Mr. President Joe Biden.
Well, David Feldman, you can check out the David Feldman Show. I'm sorry this didn't go as planned, David, and hopefully next time we come back on and we won't have this type of controversy.
Okay, I just want to remind everybody that I'm a pacifist,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and if you say I'm a warmonger, I'll smash your fucking face in. Okay?
Sweet, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. David Feldman, ladies.
Peace, brother man. Peace, brother man.
Peace out.
Okay. Okay, brother man.
Bye. That was not what I anticipated today. I didn't realize that he was that. I assumed his position on Afghanistan was a little bit different, and did not anticipate that. So supposed to be, fun. Talk to him about his time on Gutfeld, and he comes in with that, and the whole thing, it's not as interesting. Not as interesting. It's fun. It's fun. So, folks, that is our first half of our show has now ended. Sorry, that threw me off a little bit. I just did not expect David Feldman to be so pro endless war. You can support this program by becoming a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you get the free show free of commercials, and then you get the fun half. And you help keep the show going. You can also support this show by going to justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. You can get the Majority Report blend. You also can check out the AM Quickie. Do that. And you can hear the headlines every morning. Today it was out like 5 o'clock in the morning. It seemed like 6 in the morning. Don't forget, check out Nomi's show, The Noma Key Show, youtube.com/The Noma Key Show. She has great interviews every day. Oh, it's Femme Friday. I don't know who's on today, but check it out. The Noma Key Show, youtube.com/The Noma Key Show, or twitch.tv, _Noma Key _show. Matt, what's happening in the Matt Leckian media empire?
Yeah, last night, Jim and Laura of the Reclaim Idaho documentary about the Medicaid expansion success there were on. And also Cale Brooks, a Jacobin video editor. We talked about using online platforms for political education and propaganda, the opportunities and limitations of that, and for doing actual politics. So check that out last night, patreon.com/leftreckoning to get the post game.
All right. Quick break. See you in the fun half. We are back. It is the fun half. Number is 646-257-3920. 646-257-3920. You can call in. We can look at we got IM going on. Let's start with this. This is pretty fun. I haven't talked too much about Matt Gaetz. I got to be honest with you. Like he's not that relevant of a figure in Congress, and he is not the Republicans are not necessarily, embracing him. They've sort of, it seems like they have more or less let him, they've cut him loose. And so there, he's not necessarily the political liability. His seat is not probably not a pickup seat in that area of Florida, in Pensacola area, I think it is. But what is interesting is how hard the Republicans are trying to distance themselves from him. Apparently, it has been reported that Paul Ryan spoke to Matt Gaetz about his conduct, which involved all sorts of like crazy ass parties and showing pictures of naked women to fellow Congress people on the floor of the House, and a lot of just untoward behavior that might be considered inappropriate. And here is Kevin McCarthy basically trying to deny that he didn't know anything, that he knew anything about it.
Yes. Well, let's give it to our favorite. All right, we got a list. We're going to guess what you're going to ask.
When Paul Ryan was Speaker, his staff...
Or we're looking forward? We're going Paul Ryan, okay.
Can I ask my question?
Yeah.
When Paul Ryan was Speaker, his staff had a conversation with Matt Gaetz about his professional conduct.
Okay.
Were you ever aware of any red flags, any concerns about his conduct when you were Majority Leader?
When I was Majority Leader, I wasn't part of that discussion. I didn't know about that. Lots of times as Speaker or Leader, if you have discussions with members, I guess, for the privacy, they have that. I did not know about that till I read it in the article.
So there was no red flags about his conduct raised to you at all, or your staff?
I did not know that conversation, or I don't know what that conversation was even about, just what I read in the paper.
In general, his behavior, his conduct, was there anything raised to you at all?
You'd have to see Matt Gaetz. If you wonder if I knew anything about what is being alleged now, no. All right, you all have a nice day.
Yeah, the idea that Paul Ryan hadn't told him, that the leadership hadn't discussed this, but they're going to let the staff do it? Yeah. It'll be interesting to see where this goes with the Matt Gaetz thing, because there's clearly there seems to be like just sort of a stream of corruption in Florida that is surrounding with this guy and the guy they already rolled up, and so we'll see. But Kevin McCarthy really seems very excited to avoid any type of responsibility for these guys. That's why the Matt Gaetz thing is less than relevant, because they are happy to get rid of him. They're happy to have that Trumpista gone. Marjorie Taylor Greene and Paul Gosar have
the future of the party
announced a new America First caucus that is recruiting people to join based on Anglo-Saxon political traditions.
Damn, I'm out.
Or one out for Steve King.
And wait, they're calling for architectural style that befits the progeny of European architecture?
This is just like the trad fascists on Twitter. They're going to be happy about this, basically.
What? What is that in
context? There's like an all like if you look at right wing like feeds on Twitter and stuff, when they don't have profile pictures, it's always like posting pictures of a ball in Vienna in like the 1800s and being like, they took this away from us. And so it's just fetishizing that.
That's pretty impressive, I gotta say. Louis Gomert, Barry Moore. Yeah, okay. All of the usual suspects, I guess you would imagine. Rago, who becomes a cop is a self-selection, but also cops decide who get to become a cop. Who knows what that selection process is being done. Sam, about 420, Chris Conrad, curator of the Oaksterdam Cannabis Museum in Oakland, California, says 420 it started as a secret code among a group of friends at San Rafael High School in the early 70s, called themselves the Waldos. Yeah, I read that. That's what I heard. Mex Marine, I always ask my fellow Marines, don't they find it ridiculous that in the military, we have stricter rules of engagement in war zones than the police in the United States? If a service member shoots and kills a civilian who isn't actually firing on them, they will face consequences, if not jail. Indeed. Militant apathy, same amount of racists, just no good paying blue collar options. And PDs, police departments, are hoovering up every sociopath who would have other job options that pay as well. Tasers kept on your non-dominant, non-weapon side. She had to draw across her body and pull it in the opposite direction of the duty weapon. It's all about money, refund and expand government mental health facilities. Worked with a guy that was so dirty that legal determined he had to have a camera installed on his taser every time he deployed it. Jeez. Demian, it seems pretty safe to say that a large portion of your audience are geeks like myself. Have you ever listened to the Cerebro podcast? It's a deep dive on X-Men characters. Interesting guest. There was an episode with Spencer Ackerman from The Guardian where they talk about Magento for 3 hours, and it's incredible. The best part is when Spencer says that Magento is definitely Magento definitely sounds like Bernie Sanders, and then does a pretty good Bernie impression. Lots of good leftist takes on his character. Also, the Marvel Comics universe is probably going to mess this character up. I don't like the Marvel character universe. I'm sorry. How often do any of you get furious that Michael isn't with us? Especially when you hear his voice in your heads in response to an event or Dave Rubin clip. I think about it every week. I bet you think about it even more often. How much has Michael changed you all? Any movement on having Hassan for some casual Friday? We're working on that, but yeah, no, I think about Michael quite a bit. Very, very difficult to not contemplate what Michael would say in certain contexts, or I think it's even going to get. We're going to go through a period too when we're in the office. It's going to make it weirder too. But yeah, it's just a horrible waste. Coffee time. Sam, I'm surprised you don't rant on Bitcoin more. It's the perfect libertarian fantasy. Cripple governments, end inflation, have privacy for shady purchases, and waste a ton of energy as the world burns. I mean, look, the energy stuff is very problematic. It wastes an enormous amount of energy. Beyond that, if people want to collect, coins or crypto or stamps or baseball cards, more power to them. It's the energy that Bitcoin takes up that is problematic. And, the blockchain technology is interesting. And I think there's going to be applications, but it's not a currency. I mean, it's not. It is like any more than than tulips were a currency, or, wiring money to people is a currency. It's an exchange that is good for, things like shady purchases and money laundering and whatnot. But it's not a currency.
Yeah, I mean, and if it was, it would be horrible, because to have any kind of democratic control over the economy, you need to have a state control over your currency. And this is a libertarian fantasy that you're going to decentralize it. So I imagine, that we kind of talked about this. This is the future of libertarian calls. It's all going to be like crypto guys, basically.
Right.
I think.
Right. Talking about how great crypto is because they own some and they want the value to it to go up. but it's not, like it's not a currency. It's just not. It's a collectible. It's not inconceivable that there couldn't be some form of cryptocurrency that is actually a currency. But how in the world would you base an economy around a currency, a currency that, we said this before. 3 weeks ago, it can buy you a candy bar, and tomorrow it can buy you an RV. Like it's, having one Bitcoin, the fluctuations in its value. It just doesn't work that way. But I can understand why people promote it, because they probably own it and they want the value of it to go up. Jessica Favey, Stafford prison experiment. We basically live in a police state. Ned Cheetah, if you combine what your guests had to say about police and how they're trained in this country and put it together with Joe Biden's willingness to scold protesters and rioters, put those together with the squad's unwillingness to actually fight, where do you think we go from here? On the squad's willingness to fight, I don't understand the point of what you're saying. The squad's willingness to fight, like what is it that what does that mean? There's this sort of like this knee-jerk sense that they have some, magical powers. They can obstruct certain things, without a doubt. But
I mean, AOC's talking about postal banking today. Like they don't have the power to push a lot of this stuff through. And I think we can talk about how they can strategically leverage their position in the future. But I think it's clear this question is just a force the vote burnout, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like the idea that they're going to get all this done because, I mean, I think that like you work in an institution. I mean, let me put it this way. Where's the willingness to fight from all of the people that supposed like, these, the general strikes, right? Like, I mean, like there is, all of this is being invested on, half a dozen politicians who are able to highlight issues, who have been able to start to primary Democrats in the bluest seats, but are, probably years away from being able to have like any type of institutional power. And I mean, if you look at like even what like the Freedom Caucus did, which had 5 times the number of people they had, they were able to prevent, some legislation from happening, like, the grand bargain with Obama. But like there was no particular agenda that they forwarded. I mean, the whole party is that way. The voters vote that way. Whereas like, the idea that they're going to save us, these 6 people, it's just, I don't know. It's just lazy. It's just lazy. Or it's just wreckers, I think. Married to Mothra. Cops and guns first is what it takes. Pretty simple. It's Uncle Joe or Papa Stalin. Cuomo sexual. Hi, Sam. I just listened to your interview about Yemen. I still do not understand why Congress has just not put the same bill in front of Biden that they did with Trump. Wasn't it a unanimous vote in the Senate? I don't know what the status is of that. I suspect that they might. I think there's just a, getting stuff on the calendar. I mean, I would imagine that there isn't the, I got to go check and see if it was a unanimous vote in the Senate. I don't know that it was. But yeah, you would anticipate them reintroducing that bill. Melancholy. Tom Hartman always points out that we had a chance to get bin Laden without war. From The Guardian in October 14th, 2001, Bush rejects Taliban offer to hand over bin Laden. Yes, we could have. Bearded Cripple. Do all these police killings just end up as stats that justify police forces getting ever enlarging funding each year? I think that's a big part of it. Let's go to the phones. Calling from a 210 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Good afternoon, Sam. This is John from San Antonio.
John from San Antonio with the pole position today. How are you, John?
I'm doing okay.
Right.
Yeah. So first I want to talk a little bit about what Mindy said, and she, basically she was talking about how income inequality affects every level of your economic position, of people in different economic positions, and I agree with that. And so the only way that's ever going to change is if you actually elect more progressives and leftists. I mean, centrist Democrats aren't ever going to change this equation. It's just going to keep getting worse and worse, and that's includes people who do everything right, get great grades, have graduate degrees and PhDs. I mean, they're still struggling, just like people who are born into tough circumstances, and also don't make some bad decisions in life. And so yesterday I was watching TYT, and Jink went on a rant about let me just quote some of the things he says. He says, right now it's incumbent upon us to say, God damn it, Bernie, God damn it, Justice Democrats, legendary fighter AOC, where are you? It was nice and easy and great to them to challenge Democratic leadership when you were primarying them, but now that you're in power, all of a sudden you don't want us to challenge Democratic leadership. So he goes, oh, hell no. You can't get us mad at us all day, but you have got to do your job, and your job is to put pressure on, no matter what it costs us personally. And so, I agree with him. You put pressure on. You do all you can to promote your ideas, but I also agree with what you were just saying a few minutes ago. I mean, you can't become the Tea Party of the left. I mean, there is the real problem are, people like Biden, who doesn't want to eliminate the filibuster, conservative Democrats who don't want to change and who are bought. And, and the TYT has put a lot of pressure on them also. So I'll give them credit for that. But, it's totally misdirected. And, they've done a great job over the years in promoting these candidates. And what are they going to do now? Stab them in the back and be like all the force the vote people? I had to turn it off.
I mean, look, let's not. I mean, I don't care about making it about what Jank said. I mean, I can understand the frustration, and there is, I think there is, I think my read on what's going on with AOC, for instance, is that she has, reached that point that, I think a lot of people do, which is like, you can either try and work the institution or not. And she saw her power being diminished. And she didn't get that committeeship, the key committee that she needed to get, the Commerce and Energy, I think it is. That's where, if you're going to get Medicare for all, it's going to go through there. And I think she realized, where am I going to do the best good? And there's a sense of it's for her own personal sort of benefit. And I think she's probably thinking like, how can I become the most effective, progressive lawmaker? If she wanted to make more money, she could go out of Congress tomorrow and make a ton of money. And, but I think, the idea that there's a magic strategy that will leverage certain things, I just don't think is the case. Like, for instance, you see the delegation, New York delegation, pushing for the vast majority of the delegation, it's pushing for the SALT relief, right? And the
except for AOC
except
and
for
Kathleen
AOC.
Rice.
Yeah, exactly. And that SALT relief goes to something like, I know, I just had the figure. It was something like 50% of it goes to the top 1%. And then the remaining 30% goes to like the top, I don't know, 15, 20%. And then there's some amount that, 20% goes to down to people in the, the rest of the income percentiles, below 80%. And I think she's open to maybe doing, some deductions for that. But here's how it goes. Like, right. Like, they're saying this is a must, we're going to put this in the infrastructure bill. And the fact is that these people all have committee chairmanships, not all of them, but some of them. Nadler, they have more power within the institution, and their ability to have more power in the institution is going to allow them to put more stuff in there. I mean, the idea that this project is going to be, won within a 2-year period with a bunch of sophomore Congress people is absurd.
2 years ago, the struggle was to get like Pelosi to stop attacking the squash, and they're like staff members and Ilhan Omar, just explicitly. So that they're gonna have the power now to just tell the party leadership what to do is it's people creating a false expectations and harvesting the negative sentiment that's coming from that.
And I really think like the idea that like, okay, if they could withhold their vote and for a must pass thing, and then their careers are over, they're done, they're going to be replaced by a more conservative Democrat, the end of story. And they, then you're back to like, okay, now we've got to primary the Democrats again. Because the fact of the matter is like, where is the third party that is going to do this? It's just, this is fanciful thinking. You got to take the path, the most direct path to getting to power.
Yeah, if there was an alternative example, if there was more people taking power, even particularly in states that aren't deeply red or deeply blue, it would actually bolster AOC, and you wouldn't have to look to her as like the vanguard for all this.
Exactly. And really, it's like the job of the politician is to be a politician. You want to get as good a politician as you can get. And they all suck. It's which is the best out of the ones that suck. And there has to be more, frankly, coming from people, from voters. There have to be more demands. I mean, this is the bottom line. Like, we lost that big fight with Bernie Sanders. There's been no accounting for that. None. And
Sam,
yeah,
can I
go ahead? No, go ahead. I mean,
I think that like one of the things that he's talking about is like the $15 minimum wage. Okay, so once it was taken out, and then the House had to vote for it again. I mean, what he was saying was that basically progressives in the House shouldn't have voted for it, and that Bernie shouldn't have voted for it either. And so, it would have held the whole, $1.9 trillion bill up. And I mean, as much as I want a $15 minimum wage, I mean, it's not we've got to win this ideological fight, and the center of the country is still conservative. I mean, I disagree with you completely about, we're just beginning to move, and people are moving to the left slowly. And I'd love to see it go faster. And I'm actually feeling a lot of energy from these new candidates, like Marianne Williamson, has promoted all these candidates going to be running in 2022. And, I've obviously called into this show and promoted, many, many candidates, and also been on your election coverage. And so I just feel like, Cenk, who's done more than anybody on the left, there's no question about it. And, to just like get angry at these people because, this is beyond their control. I mean, it's ridiculous to become the Tea Party. I mean, that's what like Kyle Kalinske and Brianna Joy Gray, that's what they want.
Well, I got no problem with a version of the Tea Party, but let's be clear on what constituted the Tea Party. There was a lot of money behind it, and a lot of people showed up. Right? Like, where's that part of it? These politicians didn't just sort of like on their own, walk in there and have the entire electorate went there. And it wasn't just because of the politicians. You can look at and you could look at what, if you want to do the Tea Party thing, then look at what like Limbaugh and those people did to create that movement on the ground. And it wasn't to, it really, really wasn't to attack the furthermost right people in their caucus. It just simply wasn't. They attacked the establishment of the party to a certain extent, but they made anything that was not on that conservative checklist toxic. That's the way they did it. So if you're calling for certain ends, then you should follow the same path, which is we need more people. And what's going on is really just sort of like a splintering from folks who are either, really like the furthermost left people don't spend their time so caught up in the actions of four different politicians. This is the argument that the non-partisans are partisan. Their partisanship is just anti-democratic. And but that's what it is.
At one point, Anna was saying, that she's kind of like, this isn't going to happen in Congress. And this kind of echoes this idea that, electoral politics is a waste of time, which, even people who are dealing with more aspirational and theoretical, forms, of leftism, I understand that. That's what you want to do. That's great. But it doesn't take that much time to do a little research, like in when city elections are coming up here, I'll do, I don't know, for me, it's not that much, 3 or 4 hours of research on the people. And then I feel like I can then, go through all their websites. I know that people don't do that usually, but I feel like I'm making an informed decision. And if you're just looking at a congressional election or a senatorial election in a primary, it shouldn't really take you that much time to see who the more left candidate is. And, take the time, be involved, and help create this change. I know you want, a farther left, vision for the world, but it doesn't take that much time. And I have to, admire DSA for what they're doing on a local level, because they're really bringing out the issues on a local level that have never, been brought out, by just journalists and activists before. They're really, bringing it to people's attention in a new way. And so I'm really happy about that. But I just don't think we should just give up on electoral politics.
Well, listen,
because
I
we're
don't
not going to
listen.
get
Listen,
Medicare for all.
listen. Okay, there's two different things you're talking about. One is electoral politics, and the other is doing stuff on the ground to rally people and organizing and around issues, around broad organizations and coalitions. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. But what is the worst is when you are hyper focused on electoral politics and don't realize the limitations of it. And not only don't realize the limitations of it, but that's basically it. I mean, that's the worst of it, right? Where it's like, if you're complaining, go out there. Like, there needs to be more support behind these politicians so that they have more power. And they need power both institutionally and they need power outside. And that power comes from people. And there's just not that many people. There's far more awareness of AOC on the right than there is on the left. And,
it's just, people just don't have a sense of where we're at in these projects, both on labor and in electoral power for the left. It's just very early in trying to rebuild this stuff. And there's people that are trying to harvest this sentiment that where people get sick of waiting. And that's basically.
John, I appreciate the phone call, but let me just add to that, Matt, which is also like, these ideas of like people calling for a general strike. Like, I mean, really, I'm totally in favor of it, but it's also like, at this juncture to be looking at like, why aren't the top 3 YouTubers calling for a general strike? What?
Yeah, it's very detached from,
I mean,
how this gets organized.
Yeah. Calling from a 570 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, is this me?
Yeah.
Hi, this is Nick from Lenox Hill. How are you?
Nick from where?
Lenox Hill in Manhattan, New York.
Lenox Hill. What's on your mind, Nick? You got to talk into your phone a little bit.
Is this better?
Much better.
Great, wonderful. I was just calling because I saw some articles recently talking about, these small businesses, usually restaurants, person facing, that, they're struggling to get their workers back. And, everybody on the right's talking about, this is proof that unemployment is keeping people from, going back to work. All these stimulus checks, unemployment benefits are kind of keeping people from returning to their jobs. And, the knee-jerk reaction is people saying, we should pay these people more and, get the minimum wage to $15. But I also think that there's this big elephant in the room where it's like, there's this virus that everyone seems to think is gone that is keeping people, like, I've been a busboy before. I don't want to be picking up people's napkins and dirty dishes and all this kind of thing. And I think that, people on the right are totally ignorant of this virus being a thing that we're going to be dealing with in some capacity, at least for the next, 6 to 8 months, probably longer than that. And that's kind of stopping people from taking these, person-facing jobs.
Of course. I mean, I'm fully vaxxed now, and I'm not going in. I'm still not comfortable going into like a closed restaurant, until like the vaccination rate is much higher. I mean, there's surges all over the place and across the country.
Absolutely.
And we just lost 570,000 jobs. I mean, the problem is there isn't the demand, and they can't get people back because there's no protection for people when they go back to work. And why should they risk it? Why should they risk it? Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think that, like, look, you're going to always hear that, but I just don't think that's going to carry the day. I really don't. Appreciate the call.
I agree. Hopefully they come around. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks. Calling from a 563 area code. Who's this? Where you calling from?
Hey, Sam. It's Uncle Drew from Chicago.
It's Uncle who?
Uncle Drew from Chicago. How's it going, man?
Uncle Drew, what's on your mind?
Hey, I just wanted to call because, the beginning of this episode, great episode, by the way.
Thank you.
So with Chicago and Adam Toledo going on, I think it's like a big thing that's being missed right now is with like Lori Lightfoot and some of the leadership that's out there. She gets on TV and is crying. But what's being missed is like her overinflated, bloated cop budget. Like over 50% of our city's budget goes to cops. The misappropriation of COVID funds, like tens of millions of dollars went to cops. And she wants to call it, gun violence in the streets, but it's cop violence in the streets. You know what I mean? And it's a narrative that's being missed. And, there are DSA members in city council who, objected to her cop budget back in the fall. And there are other progressives who rode their coattails, who voted for it. And they're all, getting on social media, trying to like say that this is a tragedy, as it is, but it's like actions are better than words,
Yep.
And I just want to specifically call out, our Alderwoman Maria Haddon, who voted for that cop budget. And, she wants to sit here and, say like, this is a tragedy, as it is. Well, then don't vote for those cop budgets, and
I mean,
protests are going to be big tonight, I have a feeling, and everybody should just be safe.
Yeah, be safe out there. I appreciate the call. I mean, this is the big project is trying to make people understand that these are just choices, right? Like, I mean, these are, these things are not happening in a vacuum. They are not forces of nature. They are choices that we make on a political level. And people need to become more aware of that relationship between these choices and these things that happen that they don't like. They're political choices. Calling from a 913.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday, kind of stuff.
Hello? Calling from a 913 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam, this is Philip from St. Louis. How are you guys?
Philip from St. Louis. What's on your mind?
Hey, Sam, I'm the pharmacist that emailed you here, and I'll give you kind of a little bit more of a nuanced kind of look on the Johnson & Johnson recall here.
Okay.
So the kind of one thing that people kind of need to also kind of take into consideration is, yes, it was six cases out of 7 million, but considering they're all female, like you got to kind of try to look at that specific patient population. So the rate of this incident is probably going to be kind of a little higher within that specific patient population group. So that's kind of, I think, where the big concern was. Especially, I also heard that the main drug that reverses blood clots, I've heard that,
yes,
or from what I've read, and I could be wrong, it makes it worse.
Yes, I heard that
So
too.
that-
It's like
that's
henaprin
the
or something
concern.
like that. Henaprin or
heparin. Yeah,
yes,
heparin.
that heparin, it's
Um,
being treated with heparin, and it shouldn't be, because that my understanding is this, is that the pause is about making sure that there is proper treatment, a proper treatment protocol
Correct.
for
Correct.
people who are suffering from this. And they're trying to establish whether it is a function of that. You're right. I mean, let's assume, just for the sake of argument, that it's 50-50 male, female who are getting these shots. And then let's assume that, that out of the 6 million that, at least, so 3 million are female, 3 million are male. And then you got to figure at least, maybe 1.5, maybe a little bit less, maybe 1, right? Because a lot of the elderly folks
You're right.
out of 48 have gotten the other shots that came out first. So maybe
Correct.
maybe it's 6 out of 2 million. which is a higher incidence, at least, than, getting hit by lightning. I think that's a big part. I think that's a big part. I think that's a big part of it. I think that's probably the predominant part of it. The other thing that we also got to be aware of is that the Johnson & Johnson, there was at one point going to be a supply chain problem, right? Because they had 15 million doses that were essentially tainted by that subcontracting company. And so and this is complete speculation on my part. Let me just put that out there. Everything we've talked about in terms of what, has been reported is about that blood clotting and about everything we just said. But from here, it's just complete speculation on my part. So let me just put it out there with that. But if they were anticipating a break in that supply chain because of that 15 million doses that they anticipated might happen in 2 or 3 weeks, right? It seems to me that from their perspective, it could have been like, all right, well, let's deal with this now. And so that, we don't have 7 or 8 or 9 people 3 weeks from now when we're going to have to take a slow pause anyways because of this break in supply chain. That's complete speculation on my part, but that seems conceivable to me.
No, and that's another thing. And then the other kind of thing, 2 other quick points here, and then I'll let you go. So you kind of mentioned the birth control and blood clots. That is also, again, that could be a consideration. So, because what I think they need to do is take a look at all these cases and kind of see what similarities in their health could be. So, if all these women are, say, on the same type of birth control, maybe that's the risk factor as well. And on top of that, and like especially with birth control as well, smokers on top of birth control, that is would be another huge risk factor, because that's predominantly when you mentioned about the birth control and the blood clots, that's actually predominantly the most types of patient populations that have those blood clots, because for whatever reason the cigarettes and the birth control just don't mix, and that's what's called a black box warning on all birth controls for that, but the ones with estrogen at least, because that's the component that causes those blood clots with the cigarettes especially. And then kind of like, I get the other kind of last thing, and then I'll let you go here real quick, is it's not that, like, I think they're being also overly cautious, because healthcare people, at least in my experience, and when I say this, I'm not meaning politically, we all kind of tend to be a little bit more conservative in our practicing, because we're afraid of getting our licenses revoked. I mean, I went to school for 6 years, with $100K of student loan debt piled up, and we don't want to basically get it taken away for something that we hopefully could have maybe prevented down the line. So that's all I had. That's, like I said, kind of my little nuanced take on the matter. I think it, especially with the heparin thing, that was kind of, I think the big thing is they just wanted to try to find a kind of a remedy and a treatment for it if it happens again.
Appreciate the call.
Go Sox, and have a good weekend, Sam.
Yeah, no kidding, right? 9 in a row. Joyce from PA, regarding the clots with the J&J vaccine, 6 out of 7 million is the reporting rate, not the incidence. The pause could generate other reports. We just don't know the incidence yet. Yes, fair enough. Good point. Calling from an 865 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Oh my gosh, this is Ashley. I'm from Knoxville, Tennessee.
Ashley from Knoxville, Tennessee. What's on your mind, Ashley?
Well, first of all, I just want to say that I love you guys so much. You literally get me through life here. I just wanted to call. I didn't know if you guys had heard anything about the school shooting that happened here last week. I didn't know if there was any national coverage of it, because they've been pretty hush with our.
No, I didn't hear much about it. What's the story?
Yeah. Well, it was just crazy, because me and my husband, we watch Hassan, and we're just watching his stream, and he's like, somebody in his chat said, what about the shooting in Knoxville? And me and my husband look at each other like, what? That surely not here, like no way. And, at first they had just released and said that a student was shot and that was it. And we're like, okay. So I started doing a little bit of digging online. There's some different like Black-led organizations and, community outreach groups that are in the area of the school that, had the shooting at. And they started posting stuff about apparently what had happened was the kid brought a gun to school, supposedly, and was in a bathroom, and they're reporting now that there was 4 cops in there, and they finally, at first they tried to say, oh, the kid shot one of the officers, and there was like, of course, 9,000 cop cars all in that area. They're like, stay clear of the area. And, so you thought, okay, well, maybe the kid shot the cop. Well, come to find out, the cop, it was a bullet that he got hit from his own gun. And the story supposedly is that he was pulling his gun out to shoot the kid, shot himself, and another cop came in and fired a round. And, it killed the child. It was a child. Jeez. And this was like the 5th teenager to get fatally shot in Knoxville, in this area of town, just this year.
Jeez.
And it's insane. Yeah, it's insane. And it's funny because I was listening to the other callers and stuff before and what you're talking about. And even though it's Knoxville, Tennessee, and most areas are pretty backwoods, and, of course there's tons of Republicans here, but, it seems like obviously more in the cities, there's a little bit more Democratic, leadership and stuff, but it's the same thing, in the city of Knoxville, there's a Democratic mayor, but she's a total neoliberal. Like she works with the county mayor, who I'm sure is that whatever old wrestler Kane or something. I forgot what his name is, but he's a trip, and that's a whole nother issue. So,
right.
but yeah, it's the same problem here. Neoliberal Democrats, when they do get power, they just work with the Republicans, because I don't know if they're just trying to be nice or what, but I don't know. It's just crazy. So I just wanted to call and tell you guys a little info on that.
Well, appreciate it. I'll look into it. Thanks for the call. Really disturbing.
Thanks. Bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Yes. Thank you.
Brittany writes in, since the beginning of 2021, 5 Knoxville teens, all students of Austin East High School, have been killed due to gun violence. Horrible. Let me read a couple IMs, then we'll have time for one more call. Oh, we should play this clip. Tucker Carlson, what the hell is he talking about in this clip? What do you think about all the changes that have taken place over the past, let's say, I don't know, 4 months? I want you to stop. It's April 16th, almost April 20th, right? So February 20th, March 20th, 3 months since Joe Biden's been in office. Think about all the changes that have taken place. What comes to your mind? Got COVID vaccines out. We got some checks, not 2,000, but may have
Dr. Seuss has been memory hold.
Dr. Seuss,
Mr.
6
Potato
book.
Head.
Dr. Seuss.
Oh, yeah, I read Mr. Potato Head.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen to Tucker Carlson recount what has happened in those 3 months. He won't say anything specific, but it's been pretty radical, folks.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. Happy Thursday.
No, I want to
Eminent
start this at
epidemiologist Chelsea
no.
Clinton.
I want to start this at 2 minutes in or something.
Have relentless technological change, and apparently we are. You cannot inflict relentless social change and expect your society to
Pause
survive.
it right there.
Things will
Okay, so
fall
he's
apart.
just said that he's talked about, like, we've had relentless technological change. I think that's probably true. That's been going on over the past, really the past 30 years in particular, I think. And then, that the pace of it has gone up. But all right, so let's see where he goes in from there.
If you do that, that's guaranteed. Yet that is exactly what our leaders are currently doing. They're changing everything, whether we like it or not. A new language, new values, new biology, new curricula, new social mores and hiring standards and body types. A brand new national population. Pause it.
Let's just go through that and see like all the different things that have been changed. He's talking about the past 3 months, incidentally. Go back a little bit. Go back 30 seconds, 40 seconds there.
Yet that is exactly what our leaders are currently doing. They're changing everything, whether we like it or not. A new language, new values, new biology, new curricula, new social mores and hiring standards and body types. A brand new national population. What? And then, because that's still not enough change, a whole new system of government. All of that in 3 months.
Wait.
What were the consequences of that change?
Wait a second. What? Can you guys help me out here? New language?
That's all the new pronouns you have to learn.
Oh, you have to learn to say they instead of he or she. That's, that is, and oh, incidentally, you don't have to any more than you need to, like, I don't know, put your napkin on your lap. It's just,
Jordan Peterson is still at large.
It's called politeness. You don't have to. What was the other things? We've changed body types. I'm not even sure I know what that means.
I've been doing a little bit more yoga and stuff, so I'm a little bit thinner.
I've been doing some like therapy for my knee, and that is, we've changed genders and values. He's talking about like now that because
it's all trans stuff. It's
all trans stuff. Yeah. Multiple trans women murdered. I think it was in Texas this past week, past couple of weeks. I'm just trying to figure out like what he's talking about. We have a new system of government in the past 3 months. Wow.
I can't even guess what that is.
Well, let's continue on.
Not enough change, a whole new system of government. All of that in 3 months.
Wow.
What will the consequences of that change, of that revolution be? In your bones, you know the answer. It's terrifying. And it doesn't have to happen. What America needs now more than anything is a pause, a moment to catch our national breath, take stock, assess what just happened, a lot happened, and calmly consider the best way forward. You want unity for the country? We all do. And that might bring us unity. But no, the kaleidoscopic barrage of unending change continues. Yesterday, they informed us they plan to dismantle the last trusted branch of our government, the Supreme Court. Here's a congressman from New York explaining why they're doing it. His name is Mondaire Jones. He's 33 years old. He went to Stanford and Harvard Law School, meaning that in his short life, he has produced essentially nothing. So none of it is real to him. So he's happy to blow it up. Watch.
All right, pause it. Now, okay, yeah, we don't need to see anymore. Mondaire Jones has a video about the Supreme Court. First off, the Supreme Court size of the Supreme Court has changed 7 times over the course of the life of the United States. The idea that the vast majority of people watching Tucker Carlson would know that there are 9 Supreme Court justices, I would put somewhere around, like 5% chance of that being the case. The idea that if there are 13 members of the Supreme Court, it is going to radically change the way that we go about our daily lives, or we're going to be aware of it, is not the case. I wish it was that people understood what was going on in the Supreme Court. But what the hell is he talking about?
He's basically saying if we allow trans people to just exist and make changes to the Supreme Court, then we'll all have to vote for the next Hitler. That's basically what he's saying, I think.
Yeah, he does. He says this is how Hitler came about, all this radical change. Incidentally, Mondaire Jones, lawyer, worked in the Department of Justice, worked for a clerk for a U.S. District Court, and worked for an international law firm in New York. As far as I could tell, Tucker Carlson has done nothing except for have a website and be an heir and go on TV and pontificate about stuff he doesn't believe in. So, eventually he's going to try and make this about the black guy. Ultimately, that's where Tucker's going with this, because that's where all roads lead to. Radical change that we have been suffering. This change, we don't even know what our heads are spinning from all this change for the last 3 months. It's amazing he went through all of that and didn't say a thing. He couldn't point to a single thing. It's fascinating. It's fascinating. And my understanding is he did not make sure, help Lula get free. That's the other thing, I think. Your left testicle. Biden pulling out in his speech was more about the cost of billions per year than the futility of war. We broke it. We have a moral obligation to fix it. Empires love to destroy other countries and leave their mess lying around. A lot of lefties might disagree that we have to clean up our messes and actually turn the military war machine into a humanitarian device. That's the only way you take responsibility as a nation for the crimes we committed. We did it for Japan and Korea, but we don't seem to do it for brown countries, i.e. Latin America and Middle East. And for clarity, I'm criticizing the lack of a Marshall Plan with regard to the Middle East, not the end of military activity there. We should be paying off the damage we've done.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think some iteration, I don't know, we're not occupying these countries the countries are not as safe. You need to figure out some mechanism in which to mitigate the damage we did. Shane from Canada. Afghanistan has not had a real centralized government since the rule of Genghis Khan. Trying to impose some version of what we think is appropriate was a complete misunderstanding of what was possible. Indeed. PH Balance. Hey, Sam, I called in a couple months ago to ask your opinion on our food system, how subsidized monocrops have decimated our species' metabolic health. Weak metabolic health means more serious and deadly symptoms, the virus and disease. Your feeling was that most people would be interested in having that conversation at the time, and were more concerned with getting a vaccine. I wanted to know if you thought this was worthwhile conversation now, considering the increased chances of another pandemic after COVID. I'm open to it. If you have ideas on guests, send an email at majorityreporters@gmail.com. MSNB Cedar. Sam doesn't know anything about weed. LOL. MSNB. MSNB CBD. Rabbit from Boston. How dare you, Sam? David is a lefty from way back. Marzin from Chicago. Something tells me Dave is a pacifist. Pat in Cleveland. Feldman is a unique foreign policy thinker. Demos Van Ease. My friend's brother was killed by the police. His dad called an ambulance during the mental health crisis. 15 minutes later, Matt was dead, and we had to rip the burned carpet out. Could never remove the memories. Tasers are not less than lethal. Oh, God, I'm sorry.
Jesus.
Horrible. Sorry. Solivier. Feldman, hilarious as always, but you can't tell me you didn't already see Tim Pool video called America Stabbed in the Back with the thumbnail of him frothing at the mouth, looking like an American History X extra next to a map of Afghanistan with a big arrow pointing to it. Way too prescient of a bit. Wow. Doug Simmons. Comedy fail. Take the next exit, please. Return to the fun half. Endless war better than the endless bit. All right. Fair enough. Lefty McGee, in regards to the college sports labor discussion earlier this week, I stupidly walked in on the football team at Mizzou in 2005. Shout out from Josh, Chicago. Extraordinary exploitation. I walked on. Oh, extraordinary exploitation of labor going on there. One small effect being the orthopedic issues I've been dealing with ever since. A couple of major surgeries and a lot of PT in the past 15 years. Also, can't help but wonder if my depression is not related to all the times I bashed my head into some linebacker's helmet. Solidarity with all my fellow injured former college athletes out there that were pressured into sacrificing our health to the gods of sport and racial capitalism. Geez, I'm sorry about that, Lefty McGee. I wonder if there's like maybe an opportunity, to see if that depression is a function of some type of brain damage.
Yeah, I mean, I just say like sports as a way out of sort of poverty is really misleading unless you get into the tippy top of the pro leagues. Because if you're in a minor league or the college, you get nothing, and you might just be, throwing your body into the thresher.
Left of the box, you look smoking in gray. Thank you. Wyoming, Ryan, tell David we have drugs still, so plenty of endless wars left to win. All right, going to do 5 more of these, and then we're out of here for the week. Cat loving commie, Boston area resident, show up at Nubian Square, 2 p.m. tomorrow. Stand in solidarity with the BIPOC Asian communities facing systemic oppression and violence. Libertarian recovery. Have you considered having former Congressman Justin Amash on for an interview? Aside from the libertarian angle, he's spoken a ton of how broken Congress is for individual representatives. I think it'd be interesting perspective on how limited the power of the squad is. You can speak to how the Freedom Caucus was able to succeed. That might be interesting, actually. That might be. Sam McKee. See, it seemed in 91, besides money, there was an active effort to say we're not going to screw our troops like in Vietnam. Not that war is bad. Yeah. Jay Tingle. When you referred to Gates as Trumpista, I heard you say Trump pizza. I thought that's an uncharacteristically cute statement for the majority report. And then I saw your YouTube likes jump suddenly. Carry on. Glenn Greenwald took a gratuitous and mean-spirited swipe at you and Emma last night. He replied to one of his commenters, "You are literally a pedophile." No indication whether he knew who the commenter is. He's become Elon Musk. Sure, the size of the Supreme Court has changed 7 times, but we had to catch our breath. Yeah, I saw that tweet by Glenn. Very bizarre in my mind. Like, you got to wonder what goes through his mind when he reads a story from Reuters and sees it says Lula is free or going to be challenging, Bolsonaro. I can't remember what the article
The
was.
guilty sentence was thrown out.
Oh, exactly. It was expunged, right? And he responded with journalism trademark. I couldn't tell if that was just like him tooting his own horn or mocking the reporting of it. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and you always call yourself a journalist.
And then he wrote a sarcastic thanks to Ben Dixon and Vaush and Sam Seder and Emma Vigeland for all their hard work in bringing this about. And it was obviously sarcastic. And I think folks know that I've spent the better part of the past couple of weeks bragging about how I was responsible for that. That's my sarcasm. But what goes through your mind where you think, like, my response to this news is going to be to trumpet my own horn? I can understand that. He's very egotistical, and he's got a book out that recounts his thing, and deserved, and his work on that. And the way I'm going to do that is pick 4, low-level Twitter handles. I think he probably has at least 5 times the Twitter followers that I do, and I would imagine the same for all those other people, maybe even more. And single them out as ostensibly, for not doing more to get Lula released. What happens in your brain in that instance? Like, how do you even get from that to that unless you're sitting around stewing about it? It's very sensitive. Very, very sensitive.
Anyway, now he's got some interesting ideas about Bitcoin.
And now he's got some interesting ideas about Bitcoin. I mean, look, Glenn's a libertarian. And for a while that aligned with, people on the left. And there are, at least in the context of American politics, he's aligning himself with folks on the right. And, some of his critique of Democrats is or has been in the past, I think, more than legitimate. And now it just sort of seems to be this irrational thing that I think it's proving very successful for him. but if someone could even diagram for me how one's brain moves through those tweets, I would be fascinated by it. But good for him. His response there is not. What am I going to do? Argue about? Like, he's correct. I deserve absolutely zero credit for Lula's conviction being expunged, or for him being out of prison, or for and that's not it. There is a lot of stuff in the world that I don't deserve credit for. In fact, I would say 99.999999999 carry on the nines through the weekend, I don't deserve credit for. I just want to say that now so that people can save themselves the opportunity of having to, make a sort of a non sequitur tweet about it. All right, 2 more of these. Sam Simpin Cedar. I have a complicated dilemma. I work for a small manufacturing shop, and we have a partner company that occupies the same space. Max employee count is 24 people. While there was a state shutdown, we remained working under the radar. I've been working through this pandemic the entire time. My boss has taken this pandemic seriously. The partner of the company hasn't at all. They refuse implementation of preventative measures. They are very open about not caring nor getting vaccinated. They also had a minor outbreak. Luckily, I had not gotten sick this far. So far, there are only 6 of us fully vaxxed. So as you can, see, while I'm grateful to have been able to support myself, this has been a stressful, frustrating year. It sounds horrible, but now I'm over it, and I don't know if it's too late to report this business to OSHA. Is it worth it even after everything? What are your thoughts? I mean, I would make a call to OSHA and see, what protections are there for you. Because, but I would make a call to OSHA just to find out suss it out. See what kind of risk there is to your job, et cetera, et cetera. All right, 2 more. East Bay Daddy, can I get a shofar for my birthday, Sam? Yes, you can. This is for everybody who wanted a shofar today. Fantastic video of woke Pat Robertson against the cops mistaking. I saw that. It's really nuts. He's full on woke, the social justice warrior. All right. The final I am of the day. On your left, LOL, Magento. It's Magneto. Yes, I'm sorry. It's Magneto. Sorry. Kyle Kalinske has been way worse than Jank when it comes to turning on the squad and Bernie. I mean, look, folks need to differentiate themselves. It's an easier position to be in. Nobody likes to be flanked. Nobody likes the sense of like, I'm getting criticized from 360 around me. Everybody likes to be, with their back up against the wall so they can see what's coming. But that's not particularly good analysis. All right, folks. That's all the time we have for the program this week. Brendan, Matt, Emma, and Abstentia, great job this week. See you on Monday.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth